So what goeth before destruction? Or in other words, what causes one's own destruction? And I think the problem here is pride. The devil was and is full of himself. He thought he deserved more than he had. He felt he deserved a higher place than he had. He thought he was entitled to more than he actually was. His pride led to war in heaven, and since the devil introduced pride to this world, then pride is the root of evil in this world. And even after his smooth talk, Adam and Eve wanted to be as gods, even though they were already in the image of God. But pride will make you think and do silly things, and much, much worse. So we'll see where this goes. Unfortunately, pride took deep root in the world to the point that God had to destroy it in the flood. And even more unfortunately, we don't even seem to learn, because we see these days that, as predicted in where's the verse? Luke 17:26. The world is becoming as evil now as it was before the flood. We even have a whole month now towards the beginning of summer, commonly known as June. So pride has two meanings, though. One is fairly innocuous, and that is just taking satisfaction in your work. And there's really no harm in this, satisfaction in your accomplishment or the accomplishment of a friend or relative. That's a basic motivation for people and a basic reward for people. I mean, if there's no satisfaction or good feeling gained from doing a good job, then why do anything at all? But it's possible to take pride in your work and also be humble and to acknowledge that it's God who gives you the abilities to do these things and the strength to do these things. That's not the kind of pride I'm talking about here today. There's another kind of pride, which is a boastful pride. That's boastful and arrogant. A person with such pride not only thinks inordinately much of himself, but trumpets it and his accomplishments to the world. This kind of pride is destructive, not only to that person, but to the people around him. And it is rampant today, unfortunately. But how bad can pride really be? How is it destructive? Why does it go before destruction? Well, there are varying degrees of pride, but it finds its ultimate expression in the narcissist. So what exactly is a narcissist, and why is that important, and why are we talking about it today? Well, it's the extreme expression of pride. Here's a partial definition from the Mayo Clinic. People with narcissistic personality disorder, 1, have an unreasonably high sense of their attractiveness and importance and require constant, excessive admiration. 2, they feel that they deserve privileges and special treatment. 3, they expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements. And clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson refers to this as unmerited attention seeking. 4, they are critical of and look down upon people they feel are less capable or not important. 5, they take advantage of or manipulate others to get what they want. 6, they have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. They have no empathy or compassion. 7, they behave in an arrogant way, brag a lot, and come across as conceited. 8, they have trouble handling anything they view as criticism because they, in their own minds, must be perfect. And that's only a part of the list. That's only about half the list, but just for the sake of time and for keeping track of things, I'm going to keep it to that. And that alone is pretty bad. I dare say a person with these qualities is not your friend. a person with these qualities cannot be your friend, because a person with these qualities doesn't understand the concept of friendship. Ultimately, yes, we struggle against powers and principalities and not against flesh and blood and so on. However, as far as humans go, narcissists are the ones who most perfectly match the character of the devil. I've even heard non-Christians call narcissists the devil in human skin. So for the purposes of this talk, suffice it to say that a narcissist is someone who, because of his inordinately high opinion of himself, constantly seeks attention, either praise or sympathy, and manipulates others for his gain and to feed his own ego. Mind you, there are, again, varying degrees of narcissism, and you don't have to be a narcissist to be evil, but it sure helps. The only social relationships that a narcissist understands are ones of abuse, manipulation, competition, and control. The narcissist does not know real love. He knows envy, hatred, offense, anger, and revenge, and he is, on some level, aware of his shortcomings, but very sensitive about them, and this makes him insecure, and he can't be insecure because he can't have shortcomings, because he, again, in his own mind, is perfect. So in this, he lies to himself and departs from reality. So he makes himself feel better, not by improving himself, not by working on his faults, but by manipulating and bullying and putting down others. For example, one important trait of a narcissist is projection. He may have some particular bad quality, but of course he won't admit to it, and he certainly won't change it. And in fact, he will distance himself from that quality by accusing others of having that quality, whether it's deserved or not. And the classic example is Satan's accusations against God. As a narcissist, Satan seeks influence over others, even tyrannical control. But Ellen White writes in the first chapter of Patriarchs and Prophets, which is an excellent introduction as to why sin is allowed. She writes that Satan tried to win the hearts of the angels to his side against God by claiming that God's laws, which are there for our own benefit and protection, were actually there so that God could exercise tyrannical control. That is projection. And it also happens in the human realm as well. For example, a narcissist might overspend the family or marital finances on their own indulgences, of course. And when the debt piles up, the narcissist will say to his spouse, "Look at these bills. How can you let this happen? How can you be so irresponsible?" Nasty, huh? That is how bad pride can get. In fact, the narcissist will create one problem after another, one mess after another, take no responsibility, leave it for the spouse to clean up, and move on to start the next fire. A narcissist also thrives on drama, as it is an opportunity to play the victim or the hero. Doesn't matter, it's all attention. So life with a narcissist can be very, very filled with drama. The narcissist believes he is right about everything, and so will never admit that he was wrong, change his mind, or apologize, because that would show imperfection. In fact, rather than admit to a mistake, the narcissist will usually double down, no matter how untenable or irrational his position is. And this narcissist will not apologize because, again, it shows that he was wrong, but he will only apologize in one specific instance, and that is to get back into the good graces of people so that he can regain their trust and resume manipulating them. So you say, "Rick, why are you giving us a psychology lesson when we came for a sermon?" And at this point, it's time to introduce a type of person who is the polar opposite of a narcissist, and that is the Christian. The true and proper Christian has none of the qualities listed in the definition of a narcissist, and actually has the opposite of those qualities. As there is no trace of narcissism in Jesus, there should be no trace of narcissism in his followers. They have nothing to do with self-glorification. They don't brag. They don't demand special status or treatment. They feel no contempt for others, nor any desire to manipulate or control others. They are not given to criticizing others because they acknowledge their own faults and shortcomings. And in fact, they attend to the needs of others because they have compassion. However, in these end times, the Christian must be aware of narcissism because it is an increasing phenomenon. Narcissists, being diametrically opposed to Christians in their character, are effectively our worst human enemies. Anyone who has seen Jesus has seen the Father, and as followers of Christ, we are also to reflect Jesus and the Father. However, anyone who has known a narcissist has seen their father, the devil, the father of lies. So practically speaking, there are two reasons we have to be aware of narcissism. On the personal level, the qualities that define Christians as Christians: humility, peace-seeking, grace-giving, and so on. These qualities make Christians the ideal targets of narcissists. Since they are keen to avoid conflict, Christians may allow themselves to be used and belittled, believing that it's their place to be humble and to lift up others, such as their abuser, and forgive their misdeeds, and that it's not their place to rock the boat. Worst of all, the Christian who is a victim of a narcissist may just think that this is how life is supposed to be. This is normal, and not know any better. So in a marital relationship, an extreme narcissist will even take control over their spouse's money, leaving them just enough for the basics. Because wealth is independence, and a spouse with less independence is easier to control. On top of that, through guilt tripping, such as in the example of finances I just gave, the narcissist might make their spouse feel like the bad one in the relationship. The narcissist might also cut off their spouse's access to friends and family, because when you are the victim of a narcissist and you are living in a bizarre world like that, your friends and family might understand better than you. They might perceive better than you your position, what your condition actually is, and you can't be allowed to hear those opinions, those voices. So the narcissist must be the only source of information and support for the victim. At the same time, though, he might shower his spouse with gifts, compliments, favors, but that's not because he cares, because the narcissist has no compassion. It is to keep the person feeling that they have security when in fact they are being horribly taken advantage of. And he even may use a third party as a tool against their spouse, showering that person with gifts and favors and compliments to win them over, while portraying the spouse as lowly or otherwise unworthy of respect, to make the spouse look to others like the bad person in the relationship. And yes, I know it's all kind of complicated, and this is actually the simplified version of what I came up with, but it boils down to control. Controlling the victim financially, socially, and emotionally, preventing the victim from gaining power through financial independence or hearing the opinions of other people, even leaving the victim emotionally powerless to challenge their abuser. But believe it or not, the narcissist makes their victim dependent on them, not only for the above reasons that I've mentioned before, for the praise and everything, but because the narcissist is in turn dependent on the victim. The narcissist craves that support, that feeling of superiority. And if the victim cooperates, they provide that continual ego boost just to keep things steady. They may cooperate because they don't realize their predicament, as I said before, or they cooperate for the sake of their own sanity. Sometimes the victim is compliant out of fear because narcissists are, above all else, vengeful. And in some cases, the Christian spouse will realize their predicament but stay with the narcissist anyway because they feel that maybe they can change the narcissist by their example in prayer. And yes, that's actually in the Bible, but it's usually just a noble sentiment. Unfortunately, expecting a narcissist to change is like expecting the devil himself to change. Clinically, it is extremely unlikely for someone to be cured of narcissism. And I can't stand here and say that there's no hope, because where there is life, there is hope. That's Ecclesiastes 9:4, but the narcissist is as close as one can get to grieving away the Holy Spirit. His wisdom truly is corrupted. He has no need to listen to any opposing ideas or opinions, and especially not those of God and his blarg, 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 because he is already perfect and he knows best. He won't acknowledge his flaws, he won't take advice, because he knows best, and so he departs from reality yet again. But living in fantasies is ultimately self-destructive. The narcissist will arrogantly make costly decisions over and over and won't acknowledge having made a mistake even as the consequences roll in. He will only double down. So this first reason I want you to be aware of narcissism is that so in your personal lives you can be as wise as serpents. Not to act like serpents, the narcissists are the serpents here. We are to be harmless as doves, but to be as wise as them, so we can recognize their ways, see them coming, thus escape their poison, or better yet, avoid it altogether. So again, Christianity and narcissism, that is extreme pridefulness, are mutually exclusive. Their characters do not intersect to any degree at all. Every narcissist is an abuser, even if they appear amiable. But no Christian is an abuser, and no abuser is a Christian. Christians are loving, and there is no love in abuse. A narcissist can pretend to love you. A narcissist can pretend to be a Christian. If it suits his purposes, he has no problem living a lie because his whole life is based on lying, first and foremost to himself. You may do well to keep in mind that a professed Christian who engages in manipulation, talking down, or other forms of abuse is not and cannot be a true Christian because A, he's an abuser, and B, he is lying. The best and often only thing you can do to improve your personal relationship with a narcissist is to leave them and to have no more to do with them, which will save you from being destroyed along with them. So that's the personal reason. The first reason Christians must be aware of narcissism. Avoid these kinds of relationships. The second reason is that narcissists crave attention and love to manipulate others. And so they are drawn to positions where they can gain attention, power, and influence beyond that found in their local social circle. And there are two places they can do this. One is the entertainment industry, and the other is high political office. Hollywood, sports, and the music industry all have more than their fair share of conceited people, but it's in political leadership that narcissists become exponentially dangerous. And of course there are exceptions, but how do we know that our leaders are generally narcissists? Well, what are they often accused of? Those very qualities we've been talking about: dishonesty, arrogance, a superior and entitled attitude, self-enrichment, abuse of power, manipulation of others, lack of concern for others, lack of accountability, and so on. Yes, unfortunately, our political leaders are commonly narcissists, and we see the predictable results. We all know the saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Put a narcissist in a position of power, especially with very little accountability, and he can be very, very cruel. Examples, of course, are all the world's absolute dictators. So if our leaders are narcissists, what should we expect? Well, they'll be doing the same things to their populace that the individual narcissist will be doing to their spouse. Reduce their ability to provide for themselves. That is, erode their financial independence. There are many ways to do this, such as ever-increasing taxes and pie-in-the-sky fantasy policies that increase the cost of living while reducing the standard of living. Also, control people's ability to get outside information by passing laws, restricting communication media such as the internet, present the government and government-approved media as the only credible sources of information, and ridicule or forcibly silence those people who express opposing opinions. And why not pass laws regarding the use of language itself? This is how bad and destructive pride can be. You can expect much drama from such leaders, and they forget the meaning of the term public servant. So I know, whoa, Rick, you're getting too political. Are you saying that our government is Satan? Well, the Bible itself says the government is Satan. What does Isaiah 9:6, the government shall be upon his shoulder, mean? It means it isn't now. Whose shoulder is it on? If Jesus were in charge, would we be seeing the world deteriorate day by day as we do? No. Satan in the wilderness was legitimately able to offer Jesus the world in Matthew 4:9. Jesus called him the prince of this world in John 14:30. Isn't Jesus supposed to be the prince of this world? Why is Jesus not the prince of this world? Because Adam and Eve succumbed to a narcissist. And when we see that those who seek positions of influence are generally in the image of the devil, doesn't that seem more concrete that the devil runs the world, and how he does? Through his minions. However, the devil does know that his time is short and that he is going to be destroyed, but he's not going to go down alone. So it's his goal to instill as many people as possible with pride so that they will join him in destruction. And we see that his plan is working extremely well. Every societal force is designed to produce more narcissists. The education system isn't focused on the basics anymore. It's focused on how you feel. And you don't have to do any work to pass, to succeed. Imbuing students with a sense of entitlement that they bring into adulthood and the workplace. Hollywood puts out movie after movie in which the hero is entirely dependent on himself and can handle any situation whatsoever. And the internet and social media have this amazing anonymity that tends to bring out the worst in people with no consequences. So what should our Christian response be to a world that is run by and increasingly filled with people in the image of the devil? Well, the Christian can't use the same techniques as the narcissist. First of all, that would be wrong, but also the Christian doesn't even have the same impulses as the narcissist. We have two main valid responses. The first is to remain humble and glorify God in a world full of people glorifying self. And the second is to fulfill the Great Commission. Matthew 28:19, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost." Let us increase the ratio of people glorifying God instead of glorifying self. And teach and baptize. Christians and those who might become Christians are teachable. Prideful people generally are not. As the world is producing more and more prideful people, we are to produce more and more humble people. Let's balance things out a little. Apart from love and prayer, facts and logic are the main tools of a Christian to teach others. Facts are reality and logic is truth. Anything else is manipulation, which is the tool of the proud and arrogant. So as the majority bowed to the statue of Pharaoh, a narcissist if there ever was one, there may come a time when we must choose whether to bow to the evil, irrational demands of our leaders. And this has happened before, many times in many parts of the world. As I mentioned before, all our absolute dictators that we've had. And indeed, in some ways, we see that we're already in these times, even here in this country. Even the credible sources of information can't be trusted. But if we do bow, really, what will that gain us? It'll just allow us to plod along in a world full of lies created by liars. A surreal, oppressive, total surveillance utopia, which will only be a utopia to those who find themselves in the privileged class of narcissistic overlords. This is how destructive pride can be. Our other option is to follow truth with a capital T and live with the consequences. Following truth may involve trading the false freedom of a societal prison without walls for an actual prison with walls. Not saying this is necessarily going to happen, but from what we see around the world and from what the Bible says, it's entirely possible. But at least in prison you will have your clear conscience, and God will be with you there as he was with Paul and Silas. And eventually you will be rewarded with real paradise. The Bible condemns pride more than any other sin. Proverbs 8:13, "The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance and the evil way, and the perverse mouth I hate." Also note Psalm 111, verse 10, and Proverbs 9, verse 10. "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." So Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And Proverbs 8:13, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. So the beginning of wisdom is to hate evil. And so we Christians are to have nothing to do with pride, the root of all evil. So I've been talking mainly about extreme pride in the form of a narcissist, but there are lesser instances that we should be on our guard against. Why is it hard to admit that you were wrong and someone else was right? Pride. Why do you hold a grudge? Pride. When someone's sincere best effort doesn't meet your standards and you criticize them rather than being empathetic and understanding and supportive, that's pride. away with it. Away with pride, the root of all evil, and its tendencies towards arrogance and impulses to denigrate and manipulate others, not to mention its destructiveness to others as well as yourself. So that's mainly what I wanted to say. I know I'm hungry too. Just one more closing thought, and we'll have our closing song. Remember that while the prideful and arrogant of this world, who are their own gods, try to make up for their insecurities by striving for power, that the Christian gives up power to and is secure in the real God of heaven. Thank you. Can we have our closing song, please?